Sean Duffy of Wisconsin, who says, you know what, they should have blamed the speechwriter and just gotten on with things. But that's not what they're doing, Congressman.
I think they get in more trouble when they try to defend and push back and everyone's against them. And there's a time for that. Sometimes the media is not fair. But in this one, you just played the clip. It's pretty obvious that some of the phraseology was lifted from Michelle Obama's speech. And I don't think anyone believes that Melania sat down and put pen to paper and said, what do I want to say to America? Of course she had speechwriters that helped her. And so Manafort could come out and go, listen, we had speechwriters, they helped, they lifted it, they no longer work for this campaign, we apologize.
But is he not doing that because it makes him look bad?
But the message is the same.
Does it make him look bad, like he's not running a well-run organization when he's got speechwriters that are lifting stuff off the internet from Michelle Obama's 2008 speech?
No, because listen, these are big organizations, and you have a lot of people that work for you, and you can't, one guy can't micromanage everything. But what they can do is when things go wrong, take charge and correct them, and when necessary, take responsibility. And this could have been, you know, a half-a-day story. We're now in the afternoon. This is going to continue because they're not handling it right.
You know, I wonder, Congressman, if someone was deliberately trying to sabotage her. I mean, that's the first thing that went through my head, because I thought, why on earth would a speechwriter, that's your profession, you know, if you've got any integrity at all, why would you ever lift from someone else's speech? And of all people, Michelle Obama, a pretty recent speech, you're gonna get caught. I mean, was somebody trying to sabotage, or is this just an example of gross negligence?
To sabotage Melania is one thing, but you sabotage your career. Who hires now someone as a writer that's willing to lift, to plagiarize from another speech? And again, to your point, I mean, you chose to take language from Mrs. Obama. How about Mrs. Bush? How about Laura Bush? She'd have been great. Take it from someone who is, you know, who's on our side, but to lift language from the Obamas who, I mean, this convention is recoiling at the policies and pushing back on the policies. It's a little extra salt in the wound that the language came from one of her speeches.
And yet, Congressman, we've seen this happen before. I mean, President Obama lifted from Deval Patrick. Joe Biden got in a lot of trouble for plagiarism. I look at it, and again, you know, I'm a journalist, and, you know, I'll put my journalist hat on for a second. This is something you just don't do. Like, I mean, if you were in college, right, you get kicked out of school for plagiarism. How is it that grown adults that work in this profession are doing such things?
I would say that I think there's a lot of pressure on these people to be creative and produce a lot of work. And so it becomes easy to pull off of someone else's work from the past. But with technology today, as you just mentioned, you can't get away with it. With a simple Google search and a sharp memory, you're going to realize someone else wrote this stuff. And the problem today, Trish, is instead of talking about security, ISIS, law enforcement under attack by Black Lives Matter and Hillary Clinton's support for Black Lives Matter and Obama's support for Black Lives Matter, and what's going on in Russia and China, we're talking about plagiarism, and I think it sets the wrong tone for the first day of the campaign. I think the campaign can rectify it. We can get back on page. We're going to have a big night tonight with Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy. I think we're on, hopefully, a little better trajectory. And I can promise
you over the course of the show, we are going to get to all those other issues, because you're right, they're important. We're unfortunately starting here. It's got to be tough for her. I mean, she's not used to the public eye in this way, at least in a speaking capacity. And she didn't really want to have to do this, but she was put out to give this speech and spent a lot of time practicing, I'm sure. It's kind of rough.
But and I think for her, you're right. This is not a traditional role that she's had. I mean, she's been involved as a model, but not as a speaker. I thought she delivered the speech really well as English as a second language, and I'm sure she probably did refine and work on the speech. But it's those phrases that she didn't know were lifted from Michelle Obama that caused the damage. I know when we write speeches, and listen, I'm not given as many as a Trump, you know, or an Obama or Mrs. Obama. But we write our own stuff.
You write your own stuff.
We'll get some help. People will work with us, but it all comes from us. And I think if these guys did a little more of that, you don't rely on the speechwriters who sit in a room and Google things and pull stuff off, and you don't know how it's going to come back and bite you. And that's what happened here.
Congressman Duffy, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Good
Trish.
to see you.
You too.
All right, everyone.